And it was like a light bulb for me. I'm like, oh, that's brilliant. And so we went back and we put together a campaign and we did all the different news stories that our group had done recently and just bought pre-roll spots on YouTube in each of our markets on a most recent news story to get our message out there on who we are. I mean, it's a third-party endorsement, and so that was kind of a unique way.
Credibility. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Andrew Dahl, president at Dahl Automotive, a 12-franchise dealer group, for one of my most personal conversations yet. As a fifth-generation car dealer on the road to $1 billion in annual sales, Andrew nearly lost everything before his career even began. We discussed a higher power that saved his life and his family's legacy in the car business and how it's driving his massive success today. A big thank you to our sponsors for making today's episode possible: Stone Eagle, Cox Automotive, and my very own CDG Recruiting. And now let's get into the show. Andrew Dahl on the CDG podcast. Andrew, welcome.
Hey, thank you very much. Pleasure to be here and an honor.
Pumped to have you here, man.
Yeah.
You mentioned before we started recording that you've listened to some episodes and you're a big fan. I'm just curious, any favorite episodes in the past?
I love the dealer episodes. As a fifth generation dealer ourselves, so I love to learn about other families, other dealers, other markets, what they're doing. So nothing specific that jumped out, but I love the dealer specific podcasts.
Okay, good. That means they're all incredible episodes. So there we have it, folks.
Yeah.
That's the consensus. Every episode is amazing. So we can go from there.
There we go.
All right, so this is going to be a great episode because I have an awesome outline, and a great outline makes a great episode. I know a great guest makes a great episode, actually. But I think there's a lot of really cool, unique things about your operation, which we'll get into. On the financial side, you have a company goal to get to $1 billion in sales in about 5 years. So we'll talk about that and why and how you plan on doing that. But on the personal side, I saw some things that were very interesting. For starters, you're a fifth generation dealer, which is very rare. I've had second generation dealers, I've had third, some fourth maybe, but fifth you don't hear quite often. So that is going to be an interesting conversation as well. But before we even get started with any of this stuff, there was one thing that stood out to me that I'd love for you to just, it connects to kind of your story and how you got your start in the business through at a young age. But you specifically said here in my notes, I see that you acknowledged that you came into this industry being fifth generation, like feeling like pretty entitled. Typically people come on and they're like, oh yeah, I worked my way up and blah, blah, blah. And frankly, many people do that. But I would say you don't offer here the vulnerability and acknowledging the mistakes. So I'd love to just start there, right? For you to tell us a little bit about what it's like to be a fifth generation dealer, but specifically to shed light on the elephant in the room, which you just mentioned, which is that you acknowledge that you were entitled and what that was like, and we can go from there.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Well, we'll just dive right in. I love it.
Dive right in, baby.
Yeah, so my brothers and I've got two brothers in the business with me. We're fifth generation. We're really proud of that. We're actually the fifth oldest Ford dealer in the country. We started in 1911 in Wisconsin, a small rural town in Wisconsin, and grew and we contracted over the generations. But my personal story, I did grow up in the business. I worked summers at the store, cleaning cars, working parts, doing all the typical things that a next-gen dealer does growing up. I went to college. I worked out of the industry. Post-college, I was in Northern California for 5 years during the dot-com boom. It was a really interesting time for me to be out there. And then came back in 2002 to join the family business. And as you said, I came back into the business with this mindset. It's like, okay, I'm next. I'm the next oldest generation. And so it's my turn. And so I really came in to the business being all about me. And I had a lot of personal things going on also at the same time. Just had alcohol and drug issues that I was dealing with at that time, and just partying, living it up, which I think a lot of car dealers' kids can probably relate to. And so I came in entitled. I had this stuff going on in my world. And really early in my career, after I moved back, I got into some trouble. And I got to a place where I made some poor choices. Those poor choices were made known locally. This is before social media, thankfully. And the way I was living at the time really became known locally. And it was an embarrassment to my family. And I got completely broken. I'm just shattered because I was in a place where I couldn't fix the problem. And actually I was a wreck. I felt terrible because I embarrassed my family and my dad, my grandfather. And so through that, I I actually asked God to help me in my brokenness because the way I was living wasn't working. And slowly through that process, after getting completely broken and surrendering to something bigger than myself, I came to know Jesus. I came to recognize that he died for my sins and that everything in my past that I had dealt with is wiped clean. And then I just had this basically an awakening about my family's business, that this business isn't about me. Here I've been given a generational family business, and what an opportunity. And it's not about me. It's about serving our team, our community through this amazing business that we had. And although that was a rough time for me, it gave me a whole new purpose, not only in my life, but in my business. And so it really just completely changed my mindset on what this business is all about. And I really focused on how do I use my position in our family to be able to serve our team, first of all, for meaningful work, for career development, to provide for them and their families. How do we use our business? I mean, we're in the transportation business, and so everybody needs a car, right? So we have this awesome opportunity to interact with the public through their mode of transportation, their automobile, through parts and service and sales and new and used vehicle sales. And it put me like at a whole new purpose of like, wow, we got this amazing business to serve our team, serve their families, serve the community. And then it really just, it put us I was kind of on a rocket ship on, hey, we need to take this and grow it from what we had at the time when I got in the business. We were just a single point store at that time, even though we had grown and contracted over the generations. At that time, when I got in 2002, we had 1 point. And how do we take what we're doing and grow it? So that's getting real vulnerable right out of the gate,
dude,
but that's just kind of...
I think first of all, I really respect your ability to be vulnerable and honest, because I think many people don't have that type of courage. So let's just start there. I think that's a beautiful thing. I think there's a couple of things there that I want to ask you about. First one being, why do you think many kids, or would it be dealers, son, daughter, whatever, why do you think many get into these tough just life realities, whether it be drugs, alcohol, kind of going down a wrong path? And I know this could be, you could generalize this for, it's industry agnostic. I mean, you could say, is it growing up in a wealthy family? But I'm just curious from your perspective, right? What led you down the wrong path in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, for me, there's some generational addiction issues in my family. My mom was an alcoholic. She died from the disease. And so there was some unique family dynamics that's in there. That's part of it. But I think from a car dealer standpoint, we've got, as a generational business, there's unique challenges that we have and a lot of expectations. And there's plenty of car dealers I talk to all the time to go, no way I'm allowing my kids to get into this business, because it is a very difficult business. It's hard work. There is no doubt about it. It's huge stress. And how do people cope with that stress? Unfortunately, in our world, they turn to other things. And so I think just as a dealer coming into that next generation, there is a lot of expectation of like, okay, you've got to take what you've been given and an expectation to make it better. And I remember very clearly when I got into the business full time, my grandfather said, Andrew, this is a great business. I just got one piece of advice for you. And I go, okay, Grandpa, I'm just at the edge of my seat. He's the 3rd generation dealer, had 50 years in the business. He lived to 100, by the way. And he goes, just don't screw it up. And we laughed at it at that time. But in reality, like, there is that high expectation that we have that I don't want to screw it up. I want to make it better, right? And so because of that expectation and stress, I think a lot of generational businesses will turn to other things to handle that stress. And that was the case for me until I found the Lord and I was able to fill that hole with something else.
I think you bring up another really important point, which is it feels like a large part of the youth nowadays, and it's not just the youth. I think there's a lack of meaning for many people, and that leads them down the wrong path. And I think as a parent, and again, I have very young kids still, but I ask myself how I was raised. I think one of the biggest blessings you could give your kids is some meaning in life. That could come in the form of religion, or it can come in the form of other things, whatever is right for you. But I think something to believe in, I think it's really, really important. You know, when I meet someone in a professional setting, in a personal setting, it's really important for me to understand what they believe in, not for the actual ideology of their specific belief. Rather, are they rooted in something? Is there something that's grounding that human? And what is it? right? Because too many times you see that when people don't have that thing that keeps them grounded, they lose their place. We keep the podcast like pretty agnostic, and I've never really talked much about religion, but I think this is an important topic. And I was curious to know, how did you get into that and how did it begin impacting you? By the way, just to tell you from my perspective, like personal level, not particularly religious, but I am traditional. And I think in many things you can find good in religion. You can find good in, other things. I believe that every person, you can find some good and learn from them. So that's sort of how I've approached religion in general. But I'm just curious to know how you got into it and how it directly impacted your path.
Yeah, as you said, for me, I came to faith just through brokenness. A lot of people do that. And it, as you said, it provided me a new purpose to what I do. And I would totally agree with you, especially in this day and age in our culture. People are thriving, are looking for purpose. They're seeking for a bigger purpose. Like, why are we here? What's the purpose of life, right? And certainly my faith in Jesus has helped me provide that for me. But I also, because I am careful just from a faith perspective, because part of who we are as our core values is that we accept all people and we treat everybody the same. And no matter your race, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, it doesn't matter. And so we do focus on that. And so we focus more on values, like, okay, who are we as core values? What is important to us, and that's really how we drive through that purpose through the organization, because most people can get on the same page with those values. But I'm totally with you. I've got 2 teenage girls, and making sure that we provide as fathers them with purpose and really what matters in life and what doesn't, because they're getting bombarded by culture and social and things that are not necessarily, there's a lot of positive to it, but there's also a lot of negative to it. And so we've got to protect that and be able to sift through really what's important and what matters in life and what really doesn't. So, and as auto dealers, we are so blessed. We've got great businesses. We earn great incomes for our family, our teams. And so we have everything that we want. And so, but how much do you really need? That's really what it comes down to. You got to have bigger purpose than just driving profits, right? And income.
Yeah. Tell me, you mentioned you have 2 teenage daughters. Are they going to continue the business? Do you expect the 6th generation leaders? How do you think about that?
Yeah, we're working through that now. We've got actually 8 kids in the next generation. Our oldest is 16 in the next gen. So I've got a 15, a 13-year-old daughter. So 2 daughters, but between my 2 brothers, the 3 of us, we've got 8 coming up in the next gen. We're hopeful that somebody's in there. I don't know yet. I think they're still pretty young, but we're pretty intentional with the next gen. We've got a summer internship program that's required for all the next gen, so they can work through, just like my brothers and I did, they can work through the different departments in the summertime to get a feel for the business and to understand what our business is all about. But, who knows? We'll see. At the end of the day, I want my daughters to do what they're gifting, what God's designed them to do. And if that's the car business, great. If not, if that's their passion, we're going to support them. So, but out of the 8, we're hopeful. It's a pretty good legacy. So there is some interest in the next gen though, amongst the 8 for sure.
Given your 5th gen, would you say legacy is important to you?
Absolutely. Yeah, it is.
Why?
Well, I think legacy is important to me because it's not legacy in terms of being successful, in terms of the numbers. Legacy is important because of the impact that we have on our team, first and foremost, their families through our business. And then secondly, in the communities that we do business. If you look across the country, you'll see there's a car dealer in every community. But if you look at the communities that are really thriving, typically you're going to find a car dealer in the middle of that community that gives back, that meets real community need, that's involved in the community. That's why our business is so great. That's why the franchise dealer model is so great, because we're in each of these communities. And so when I think about impact, and our family's been impacting our communities that we've done business for generations, and that's really what defines legacy from my perspective.
Yeah, I did notice you do lots of philanthropy. And I always like to ask why, because I think that just donating or something, what's the meaning? Why? What's driving it? I always like to get down to the kind of atomic unit, but I think I understand from your perspective what drives that.
Yeah, the why is it?
And before we move on to a different topic, I am curious to know, how would you integrate the next generation differently into the business? Or is it broader than that? Because given what you went through, I'm sure you've obviously reflected a lot on kind of what the shortcomings were or why certain things happen. But how would you go about that? Or do you think it has nothing to do with integrating into the business? We could talk
No,
about
it has a lot to do with it. As far as what I do different, I mean, one of the benefits that we have as a fifth generation business is that we get to learn from the past generational mistakes. I mean, you're a podcaster, it's all about story. And so we have stories from generation to generation passed on that has enabled us to correct some things that, I mean, we've had in past generations, we've had the typical car dealer issues that happen with generational family businesses. People have been taken to court, siblings don't talk to each other for 10 years. We've had all of that happen in past generations. And so the first thing is like, hey, how do we not have that happen again? But being intentional with the next generation is really important. Like the only way, especially as we scale and we get to $1 billion business, the only way that we're going to be successful as a family is that we've got to have a family that understands the business. I mean, every single part of it. And that's something that my dad and my grandfather basically required for us. Growing up, working summers to understand it. But then once we got into the business full time, I mean, we rotated through each of the departments. I didn't come in as a general manager, right? I came in as a service advisor, and then I worked under BDC, and then I worked on the sales floor at F&I and GSM, and worked throughout our business to understand it. Because at the end of the day, as an owner and as a dealer principal, we have to understand what each of our team members goes through every single day to have a good grasp. To be honest, I'm not going to get approved as a dealer unless I understand the business from our OEMs. So for us to be able to propagate to the next generation, we've got to have family members that the OEM partner can say like, hey, they get the business, they understand this business, they're going to be a good partner with us. And the only way to do that is we have to work into it. So it's a 5-year plus grind in these different departments
at the minimum.
Just to learn it, and I've been in the business for 22 years, and I was in the business for 15 years before I became president of the group. I didn't run my first store and 10 years in before I was running a store for the first time. So, and that's after a 5-year career out of the business. So
this episode is brought to you by Stone Eagle. Let's be real. Technicians hate writing repair stories, but skipping the details, that could mean unpaid warranty claims and lost revenue. That's why smart dealerships use Pencil Wrench by Stone Eagle. It's the easy way to handle repair event documentation so techs can focus on fixing cars, not paperwork. With Pencil Wrench, techs follow a simple checklist and the system builds a complete professional repair story. And here's the best part. It's OEM specific, accurate, and fast, so warranty claims get paid, customers get clear documentation, and techs get less frustration and more money. That's a win for everyone. So if you're ready to eliminate lost revenue, boost efficiency, and keep your techs happy, it's time to check out Pencil Wrench. See how it works at stoneeagle.com. That's STONEEAGLE.com, and get free setup and training when you sign up for 1 year. Mention code CDG Wrench during your demo and tell them the car dealership guy sent you.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about the future. You've set some audacious goals. You've scaled the business from $40 to $450 million. Is that correct?
Right.
Under your leadership. So before we talk about the future, actually, let's talk about that for a second, right? 10x growth, or actually a little bit more. What have been the main levers that have led to that?
Well, it's been a learning.
It's obviously a very big picture.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I see that you're adding, right? You're like vertically integrating now. You're investing a lot in digital marketing. I realize that's a lot more recent today, right? But give us like a little encapsulation. Have you been mostly acquisitive? Has that been just mostly acquisitions? How have you really accomplished that in a nutshell?
Yeah, I mean, our early growth was increasing our footprint regionally in our current community. La Crosse, Wisconsin is where we're based. So we started with 1 point, and then we opened a open point for Hyundai. So that was a unique thing. And then we started acquiring stores in our immediate region. And that was every couple years kind of a thing. And then obviously the last few years has really ramped up. So it was a fast last 5 years. But, partnering with the right OEMs. And then it's really been focusing on people. You've got to have talent. And that's one of the there's 3 main reasons that we're growing. One, because we want to impact communities in a positive way, just like we have in La Crosse, Wisconsin, other communities. We've got to have ability for our pipeline of team members that are growing with us, that we're on career paths with us, we've got to have room for them to grow. We've got a lot of team members within our group that want to be GMs one day. And so we've got to have the footprint, the stores to be able to do that. Yeah. And then thirdly, I think just from a survival standpoint, you've got to have a level of scale with the consolidation happening in our industry to be able to survive and survive well and profitably. So those are kind of the three main reasons we've been. And like you said, along the way, we've been doing some vertical integration plays. We added a parts business. So we're our own parts supplier rather than partnering with a aftermarket parts business. We're our own parts supplier.
For used
cars. Yeah. So we do, and our express and our quick lanes will use our own parts for that. So we partnered with Mighty Auto Parts as a franchisee for that. And that business, we're a big used car. We sell about 1.5 used cars to new. And so used cars is a big part of our business. And so vertically integrating on the part side, because I'm getting margins on both sides, right? Because I get it first when I sell the part, and then when I stick it on the car and sell it to my sales department out of our recon center, I get a pickup margin there. So I'm getting it both sides. And so that's really helped us with the profitability standpoint as we've scaled our business.
So let's talk more about that. As you think about doubling the size of the business in roughly 5 years, how do you plan on balancing growth and profitability?
Yeah, I think that profitability is a little bit of a lagging as you scale, because you've got to add a lot of support in there, and then it starts to come back. We're still learning this, but yeah, in the front end, there's some investment to get to grow in people and in our support staff and everything else, and then profitability does come. So we're definitely focused on the revenue side, and then the profit comes.
Talk to us more about expansion. And I read something in my notes here about your strike zone when expanding and deciding what markets and what brands. So if you can just give us an overview of what brands and you have under the portfolio today and how you think about expansion.
Yeah. So current brand mix, we've got all three domestics. We've been with Ford forever, and we've got GM, and then we added Stellantis back a couple of years ago on our most recent acquisition. So we got 2 Stellantis stores. And then from an import standpoint, we've been a Subaru dealer for over 40 years. We're with Hyundai, Toyota, Mazda, and then Honda. So I've got 3 Honda stores. So that's kind of our mix with brands. And in terms of strike zone and markets, La Crosse is kind of a mid-sized market. So we've got about 150,000 in terms of population that we serve. And that's kind of our sweet spot. And the reason why I like the mid-market play is that we can have a real impact in the communities that we do business at that size of community. It's more difficult to do that in the major metros. So for us, we're really focused on that kind of that mid-market. So that's a strike zone. Also, those deals are a little bit more affordable than the metros. And so we're focusing on the brands that we do have, that we've got strong partnerships with. We've got strong partnerships with all of them. And so adding additional stores within that mix, obviously I'd love to add another Subaru, Toyota, and Honda stores, but all of them are in play. We don't have a Kia store yet, so that's something that we're looking at. But yeah, that's kind of our focus for growth.
Well, when you say mid-market, does lack of upside concern you?
Mid-size.
Or yeah, because I know typically people go after the big metros because they know they can really grow their business significantly, so they can pencil it differently as well.
Yeah.
Is that a consideration for you? How do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, we are staying away from more of the rural stores, smaller stores, because of that exact point.
Got it. So you're looking kind of in between.
Yeah, that in between. Yeah. And with the consolidators and the publics, it's tough to go after a Toyota store in a big metro. It's just the capital it takes for that. I know there's plenty of private groups doing that, but for us, we're staying focused on those mid-sized markets.
Yeah. Now, tell me more about your choice to vertically integrate, right? You mentioned parts as a good example. You mentioned you have your own reconditioning centers as well, which you've erected these reconditioning centers only to work on used. Let's start there first of all, right? Why do that, right? Why not run your used through service to begin with?
Yeah. So because we're so focused on used cars is something that we can control. We have to get the throughput to be able to get the velocity and volume in used cars. And so we pulled, and this was uncomfortable for our general managers for a little while, because they had to replace that stall that they used to work on used cars with retail work. And we let them down easy for a period of time. And then we really showed them the benefit ultimately. And our fixed business have just absolutely exploded. And so we focused on adding fixed and supply in terms of stalls and everything. And so recon was a great way for us to do that. And we could take the used cars off site, separate used car recon center. So we got our parts business and our technicians detail that do, so they're centralized. So they'll do used car recon for multiple stores. We've got two. We got one in our central Wisconsin region, and then we've got one here in western Wisconsin. And those two recon centers really take care of the used car business in those regions for those stores. And ultimately, the retail work is ultimately more profitable at the dealership level. And so they can focus those stalls on that retail work. And it's really worked well for us.
I mean, if you have your stores pretty aggregated or pretty close to each other, and you can work out of centralized facility. I mean, it's what I did, and it pencils very well at volume, right?
Yes.
You do everything a lot more efficiently. How did you structure your reconditioning center? Like, did you model it based on anything out there, whether it be CarMax, Carvana, or did you just
Not really. Just like the typical car dealer entrepreneur. We just figured it out and we got a good model. We had some starts and stops and just figured out the tweaking on the size and how many stalls we need for detail, how many we need for the inspections and parts warehousing and all that. But we've got it pretty fine tuned right now. And because used cars is all about turn, and it becomes more difficult at the store level to get that turn out there and get the used cars the priority it deserves when you've got guests that you've got to prioritize. So taking that out of the equation, we can get a 3-day turn on these used cars and back to the lot, and which maximizes obviously our PVR and the gross. The sooner we can sell it, the more we're making. So that's been the biggest help is the much faster turn. We can get those cars back on the lot faster.
What's your used to new ratio?
We're like 1.5 used to new. So we sell more used cars than new.
You're a strong used market. I didn't realize that. What about commercial trucks? This is another line of business you're in. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so last summer we acquired a Ford truck store. This was Ford nationally. They don't have too many of these commercial only stores around. They're actually trying to consolidate them, and we helped them do that in our market. Really? So we had a separate kind of, which is basically F-250s and above. And so we acquired that.
I have one right next to my house.
Do you? Okay. And so, yeah, that's been an amazing business for us. We are really focused with the 3 domestics in particular. We do focus heavily on commercial, growing that business. It's a really good business. It's a high margin business, both in service and on the sales side. And so that is something where we've added to the mix that we weren't in 5 years ago. We've really been focusing on that the last 5 years.
I asked you about parts and stuff like that because I think one of your goal you mentioned is to get to $1 billion in top line. And a part of me questioned, well, is vertically integrating a parts business and stuff like that, is that a distraction? Hence why I asked you, how are you balancing profitability versus actual growth?
Yeah.
And so how are you deciding right now what areas to focus on most, right? Where to put your attention to hit your goals?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that can pull your attention. And I focus on the most important thing is just how we look at any venture, any vertical integrated play. It's like, how is it going to help? And how is it going to help us profitably grow? Profitable growth is part of our vision statement. So it's important. And that has been a great play. The parts piece has been a really important play with that. And it doesn't distract you if you've got the right team. And that's another thing that's amazing for career growth is we acquired a Chevy store in 2012, our Chevy store in 2012. Yeah. And we had a parts counter guy. His name's Ryan. He started out with us on the parts counter. We grew him into assistant parts manager, parts manager. Now he was a parts director for us. And then when we had this idea on this used car parts business, we had the perfect candidate ready to go. And so he had the capacity to take that on. And so it's all about people and the ability to have the right people in play to take that business, because otherwise you're right, it will be a distraction and it'll take away from your operational efficiency across the group.
Yeah. And are you selling retail as well, or are you only you're your only customer?
We're selling internal right now. We do have the option to sell externally to other shops, and that is the next phase that we're gonna move to. But right now we're our only customer internally.
This episode is brought to you by Cox Automotive. Every day, dealerships are surrounded by invisible car shoppers, buyers who haven't yet engaged but are already in the market. The most successful auto retailers aren't waiting. They're moving up the funnel, identifying shoppers before they even step onto the lot. Enter Retail 360 by Cox Automotive, the home of the biggest names in digital automotive retailing. With Retail 360, dealerships unlock real-time shopping intelligence from 82 million car shoppers, turning data into action across every department. This partnership goes beyond AI buzzwords, delivering real results through connected solutions, market insights, and best-in-class partnership support. Power on a partner like no other with Retail 360 by Cox Automotive. Learn more by visiting carguymedia.com/Cox. That's CARGUY media.com/COX, or by clicking the link in the show notes below.
It's the good old Jeff Bezos line: turn your cost center into a profit center.
That's right.
I love that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, one of the things that we did for a period of time was just stock the 20% of parts and tires that we needed to use 80% of the time on reconditioning. So that served us pretty well. Allowed us to kind of keep inventory low and use less space in the facility by just stocking sort of that 20%, that rotors, whatever it is, brakes and all that, kind of running some quick analytics on that and figuring out how we can be as efficient as possible.
Yeah, and we not only is our parts business those parts in our recon centers, but we do have them on the shelf at each of our parts departments across our group. We're obviously a big supporter of our OEM partners on the OEM parts, but we also do have our other part options that's on the shelf, and our parts business and our parts people go to the stores and replenish that, just to your point there, to make sure that they've got the parts they need and is another option for our guests.
Let's talk a little bit about marketing. This is something that I want to believe is near and dear to your heart based on my notes. Talk to me, first of all, how much do you spend right now to market per car that you retail?
We're spending about $200 per vehicle retailed, so which is about half of what the industry is in terms of per unit retailed.
And are you talking about new, used, both?
Total, yeah.
Total. Okay. Can you break that down? Let's dissect that. What are you doing on the marketing front?
So we're 95% digital. So we've mostly doing SEM, SEO, Facebook, and we do a lot of YouTube pre-roll. We're big Google. Most of our spend goes to Google, as most dealers do. And so we do focus primarily there. We don't do much traditional advertising anymore at all. We do a little bit of local news in a couple of our markets, our smaller markets, where that makes sense, but mostly just all digital. And we do a lot of video.
Wow. And what's your measurement of success? Are you looking for direct conversion? How do you really know that it's, because YouTube, for example, how are you really measuring the success of that?
Yeah. So we've got a marketing partner that we work with, and we work with them every single week, but I'm on the call once a month. We look at our conversions, we look at our impressions, and we really see how the funnel's performing in terms of leads. We've got a BDC at our stores. We have a BDC model that's centralized between a few of the stores. And at the end of the day, we're looking at the lead traffic and how it's performing in terms of converting to appointments and show appointments and ultimately sales. So we look at the digital numbers in terms of all the metrics and how it feeds down to the rest of our leads and ultimately sales.
So as I'm thinking through this, do you think do you think you're overspending on digital? Do you think that maybe the short-term boost you're seeing or benefit on how much you're spending per unit is hurting potential long-term growth of more brand building that you could achieve with whether it be traditional media or billboards, kind of TVs, commercial stuff like that? How do you think about that?
Well, we do quite a bit of branding. So we do the traditional sales event. It's March, so we got a March markdown sales event going on, and so we do that at each of the stores, both for used and for new. So we do those offer specific sales event things. We don't do them that often; those are more quarterly. But most of the rest of our advertising is on branding. It's about our team. It's about our pricing philosophy. It's about how we take care of the community. It's those type of things. That is really the bulk of our ad spend is who we are. And the community piece is a big part of that. And one of the stories I'll kind of tell you that kind of hit me. So we do a lot of community stuff, a lot of philanthropy, like you said. We do it because it's the right thing, because we can make an impact in the community. But we aren't shy on telling people about what we're doing, because the community needs to know that we're integral and we're making an impact. And so with that, we do a lot of press releases. We get our local news, radio stations, the newspaper. We get everybody. We amplify it because that's free, and we get a lot of news stories about our group and what all the different stores are doing. And so we do amplify that. And one of the things that kind of hit me, just to further amplify it, so we're in Wisconsin, which is it's a state that can go either way. And so late last year, I remember I was on my morning workout on my bike in the morning watching YouTube, and I kept getting served up these ads. One of the presidential candidates was in town a couple weeks before, and of course the local news did a news story. And I'm watching YouTube, and this pre-roll just keeps hitting me about the news story from this candidate. I'm like, why am I getting fed this? Like, the news isn't doing that. Sure enough, I click on the details on it, and it said so-and-so paid for by so-and-so by president. And it was like a light bulb for me. I'm like, oh, that's brilliant. And so we went back and we put together a campaign, and we did all the different news stories that our group had done recently, and we just bought pre-roll spots on YouTube in each of our markets on our most recent news story to get our message out there on who we are. I mean, it's a third-party endorsement, and so that was kind of a unique
the
way.
credibility. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's huge. Like taking articles and stuff like that, screenshotting it, like you said, doing a quick video, promoting that. That's the real value nowadays of traditional media endorsements. It's not the because they're not going to get the reach that you're going to get when you put it on your social, when you promote it. That's the real value.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it was kind of a unique way that we helped get it out there.
My other question is, if you had to pinpoint what is the secret sauce that you're able to achieve such incredibly low marketing spend per unit, in light of the fact, because you are working with an agency. It's not like you have in-house, so you're paying margin to the agency for sure, right? I mean, like, are you pricing these cars super low, or are you just in these kind of, like you said, mid-sized markets where you've branded yourself incredibly well through the philanthropy, right? Like, can you pinpoint to some secret sauce? Because 10% better than market, cool. 20%, wow. But 50%, that's a big number.
Yeah, it's the latter, Yossi. It's all about community with our brand. And when the community can trust you as the auto dealer in the community, because our vision statement is it starts with to transform the auto industry at the retail level, because our business is broken in so many areas. Everybody's got a story about getting ripped off at a car dealer. They upcharged me in service and stuffed me into a used car that I didn't really want, the payment I couldn't afford. And so that is our mantra. We hit that all, like, we're the dealer that is different. And so that comes out in our branding and our marketing and how we care about the community and the real need, and also how we care about our team. And so that's, for us, that's the secret sauce. It takes a lot of work to get to that. And we're finding that in our new markets. You got to establish yourself, because we haven't been in those markets for 100 years, but we've been really focused on getting our brand out there and who we are and what we're about. We're there in those communities to serve, not to take. That's the primary reason why we're there.
This episode is brought to you by CDG Recruiting. The Car Dealership Guy platform has direct access to thousands of skilled professionals in the dealership and automotive industries. And so, building on top of our free industry job board, we've launched CDG Recruiting, a hands-on, white-glove automotive recruiting service. Whether you're looking to fill roles in dealership management, the C-suite, F&I, fixed ops, auto tech, or SaaS, we take the hassle out of hiring by doing the heavy lifting for you. It's easy. Start by submitting a confidential talent request on our website. Next, we connect you with a dedicated talent expert who will thoroughly understand your unique needs. And finally, we present you with top-notch candidates who are ready to drive your business forward. And here's the best part. We vet and screen every candidate for you so you don't have to. And with our placement guarantee, hiring through CDG Recruiting is 100% worry-free. Collectively, our team has decades of experience and has successfully placed over 1,000 roles in the automotive industry, so you know you're in good hands. If you're ready to find your next rockstar employee, try CDG Recruiting recruiting today by visiting cdgrecruiting.com or clicking the link in the show notes below. Again, that's cdgrecruiting.com.
That's awesome. So I'll leave you with one thought when it comes to marketing. So I spoke one time to this really just prominent, well-known tech investor, and he told me, he said, the way to really know how strong your brand is and just your branding is turn off all direct conversion marketing. Turn it off. Turn it off for a day, a week, 2 weeks, a month, right? And see what happens. Now, obviously there's a cost to that, but the point is, and you can do it in kind of, you can do it in spurts. You don't have to do it all at once, but I thought that was super interesting. It's kind of called like a blitz test where you really see, okay, let's see what happens, if I don't spend on direct conversion and how much business do I lose? And of course, the less you lose, the stronger your brand is.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
We
need to do that. That takes a lot of courage, but I like that. Totally with you on that.
Yeah, man. Cool.
We
So
do need to do that experiment.
So what's next for you? I mean, what's like exciting to you nowadays? What's in your mind other than being on the Car Dealership Guy podcast?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. What's in your mind nowadays?
Well, we're focused on hitting our goal and our revenue goal, and my job is to share vision with our team on why we're doing what we're doing. And it's not to grow Dahl Automotive, to have this many sales or this much revenue. Yes, we have a goal that we're trying to get to, but it's the why. So I focus a lot on the why and trying to have our team understand what that is. And we've got an amazing team that have grown with us, that's been with us from the beginning of this vision. And so that's kind of what I focus on to make sure that we've got proper engagement with the team. A couple of the metrics that we really focus on in our group, and it's on my weekly scorecard, is what kind of retention do we got with our team, our turnover, because if I have a turnover problem, that's gonna slow us down to accomplishing our goal. And so we're above industry average pretty significantly in terms of retention, which is great. And even with new stores coming aboard, we focus on that. But then also the other metric that we look at is our ESI engagement, so employee satisfaction. So we ask our team every year how they're doing. On new stores, we'll do a pulse survey 6 months into buying the new stores to see how things are going. What can we do better with? So those two things, I really stay focused to make sure we've got an engaged team to our goal. And I'm radically transparent with our business. We share numbers with our entire team, our frontline team, because the more that they understand.
Like what type of numbers, Andrew? Like what type of numbers?
All the way down to our profit numbers for the group, for the stores, the different metrics, the different margins. We're very transparent with our team so they understand our business, the goals, and really what their role is in helping us accomplish our goals together. Because there's nothing better than having the entire team understand and then accomplish those goals, and then we celebrate as a team with the wins. So we're very transparent with that from that perspective.
How's your personal life nowadays?
It's amazing. I mean, I've got 2 teenage girls, so it's an interesting time in our world right now with them, but they're great. They're 2 great girls. Been married for 18 years. My wife's amazing, and she's my rock for sure. And we've been through this growth together. So it's been a wild ride, and I try to stay active. Just
like, what do you do?
Well,
Exactly.
in the wintertime, I'm a cross-country skier, and in the summer, I'm a cyclist. So last month, I competed in a cross-country ski race. So we're in the upper Midwest here. There's a cross-country ski race in northern Wisconsin called the American Birkebinder. It's a marathon race. It's a point-to-point, and it's the most hardest thing. But I've done it 15 times, so that's kind of my thing in the winter. And then I like to bike in the summer.
Is your wife in the business or?
Well, she's not in the business full time, but as you probably know,
indirectly
with your wife, like she's very much part of the business. And we talk about the business at home quite a bit, and my daughters are engaged, and they're like, "Dad, you're going to be on the Car Dealership podcast, like the real." So they were.
I love it.
You're always listening to that, so they knew what was going on. Yeah, and we're with our girls, we're I know you got younger kids, but navigating the world with them right now, and we're really big advocates on holding on cell phones until high school and no social media until they're at least 16, and we just think that there's a lot of noise out there, and our job as parents is to make sure that we're raising good kids that are focusing in the right areas without a lot of the distraction.
It's tough. You're saying the right. I mean, how do you think about just plain education right now, right? They used to tell us, oh, like, you're not going to have a calculator in real life. Like, yeah, you're right. We're going to have a supercomputer in our hands. But same thing with AI now. It's like on one hand, you want them to learn how to ride and stuff like that, which they need to, of course. On the other hand, we all have these supercomputers in our hands and these AI agents that can write you an entire essay in 3 seconds. It's a tough balance, right?
It is. It is a tough balance.
How do you raise and educate kids in that world, man?
Yeah, I think you got to balance.
And everyone's thinking about it now. I hear like so many parents talking about this. It's like the biggest thing.
Yeah, it's, for us, I mean, what we've learned is that just being super present and engaged in your kids' lives. Like my wife and I are really engaged with our 2 girls and making sure that we know what's going on with them and spending a lot of family time together, meals together. That's just really important, even though life's crazy. But I think it's a balance. Like, yeah, I mean, my girls are on ChatGPT. They're in there. They're learning about it, because I think there's a lot of great technology out there and they have to understand it. But it is a balance, and ultimately it becomes where does something become destructive in their lives, and that's why we try to really protect that part of it.
Yeah. So it's a good take. Anything concerning you about our industry and where it's headed? You're like I said, you're 5th generation. Lots of macro changes happening here with our industry over the last couple of years, decade even, when you think about all the trends, direct to consumer, just general attempts at disintermediating the dealer. Does that concern you as you think about teeing up the next generation?
Yeah, I mean, obviously 5th generation, 115 years we've been in business. We've seen a lot in our world, and those are the same stories that have passed on. And I was just out in Arizona visiting my dad, and we talked a lot about that. And he was just talking about, because we were just talking about interest rates and floor plan expense and how we're not going to get the cuts this year that we're hoping for. And he talked about we might, but he tells a story about in the 80s and 25% interest rates, and so he goes there, and so it's helpful for me to be, okay, we got through that challenge. I know whatever challenge that's going to come at us, we're going to be able to get through it. But some of the other things that I've thought about, I mean, you talk about direct to consumer. I think some of the things that we're seeing, we're not a VW store, but seeing what Scout's trying to do. We are a Honda store, so the Ophelia and what that model is doing direct consumer, those do concern me a little bit. I'm very active with our State Dealer Association. I'm on that board, and so we do talk a lot about direct sales. The franchise dealer model is strong. I'm very bullish on it long term for sure into the next generation, but there are some things that we need to do to protect that model, because it is the best model to best sell and service vehicles and serve our communities through our business, is that model. So that definitely is something that we're watching.
I'm glad you mentioned your dad, and I can't believe I didn't ask about that, but what's his involvement in the day-to-day business with you being president?
Yeah, he gave me the reins, but he's still, there's so much wisdom, right? 40 plus years in the business. And so we talk a lot, but he has really given me the reins along with my brothers to run the group. And he's got a lot of insight. He is a big part in our growth. And so a lot of the acquisitions, him and I have kind of done it arm in arm, because he's bought and sold a lot of stores in his career. So that's really, we talk big picture with him, acquisition strategy, as well as just general industry things. But he's still a big asset, still involved, but just not from a day-to-day perspective.
But now he's hiking in Sedona.
That's right. Yeah. He loves Arizona. Yeah.
I love Arizona.
Hiking, playing golf. Yeah, it was good.
Awesome, dude. Well, man, dude, you crushed it, first of all. Appreciate you being so vulnerable and authentic. I suspect that you'll have lots of outreach, because people really connect with others. They can share stories, especially if they can relate in any way. So I just want to say thank you for coming on, sharing your story so authentically. It's truly incredible, and just rooting for you, man. It's really cool to see what you're doing, how you're building. You're doing it the right way for sure, and you have lots of meaning behind it. So it's really an incredible thing. So I'm already excited to air this episode, but it's going to be awesome. So I appreciate you coming on.
Hey, my absolute pleasure. And you providing the platform is getting those stories out there. Without Car Dealership Guy podcast, a lot of these stories would have never gotten out there. And I think it's been a big help for our industry. So you're doing great work too.
Thank you. No, it's having a ton of fun. So I appreciate that.
Awesome.
All right. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Please give the podcast a rating, consider subscribing to the show, and check the show notes for links to what we talked about. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time.